April 2001, routine patrols over the South China Sea, just another day for a US Navy signals intelligence crew. But when a Chinese fighter closes in, a 20-second maneuver shatters both aircraft and triggers a diplomatic standoff with global stakes. How could a standard intercept spiral into an international crisis and leave two world powers demanding answers? The events that followed exposed just how fragile and dangerous the edges of routine can become. Before dawn, the US Navy's EP-3E Aries II lifts off from Kadena Air Base in Okinawa, bound for the open skies above the South China Sea. Its mission is routine for the crew: collect signals and electronic intelligence, scan for radar emissions, and listen for military communications. The EP-3E's 24-hour suite of sensors and analysts turns the aircraft into a flying command post, able to map electronic activity across hundreds of kilometers. These flights follow well-worn corridors, skirting the edge of China's claimed airspace, but always outside the 12 nautical mile boundary recognized by international law. On this route, the aircraft passes near Hainan Island and the Paracel Islands, territory bristling with Chinese military installations and home to Lingshui Airfield, a key base for interceptor jets. For years, these patrols have played out like a tense game. Dozens of times each year, Chinese fighters scramble to intercept the slow-moving EP-3s, closing in to visually identify and sometimes to intimidate. Encounters often unfold within a narrow corridor, sometimes as close as 100 kilometers from Hainan's coast. In January 2001, a Chinese J-8 pilot flew within 20 feet of an EP-3, matching its speed and risking aerodynamic stall just to make a point. Such aggressive maneuvers are not rare. They have become part of the unspoken choreography between the US and Chinese militaries. For the American crew, these intercepts are expected hazards, risky but familiar, the price of routine surveillance in contested airspace. The sense of danger is real, but the pattern has held for years without disaster. Until now. At 9:20 local time, two Chinese interceptors scramble from Lingshui Airfield, closing in on the EP-3E as it cruises at 22,000 feet and 180 knots over international waters. Lieutenant Commander Wang Wei, piloting the lead J-8, begins a series of aggressive maneuvers, drawing dangerously close to the American aircraft. The first pass is tight, the second even closer. On the third, Wang's fighter moves in with barely a margin for error, shadowing the EP's left wing. In an instant, disaster strikes. The J-8's vertical stabilizer clips the EP's number 1 propeller, sending metal shards spinning. The nose radome shreds open, the left propeller splinters, and the number 2 engine sputters as the aircraft lurches violently. Inside the cockpit, alarms blare. The sudden impact rips through the airframe, causing rapid depressurization and knocking out key navigation and communication systems. The EP rolls sharply, losing altitude. Wang's J-8 breaks apart, trailing debris as it tumbles toward the sea. Wang ejects, but his parachute is spotted drifting alone. He is never recovered. On the EP, Lieutenant Commander Shane Osborne fights to stabilize the crippled plane, wrestling with failing controls and a wounded airframe. With the radome gone and instruments failing, every second becomes a battle to keep the aircraft airborne. The crew scrambles to assess the damage, their routine patrol transformed in an instant into a fight for survival. The decision ahead is stark: attempt a dangerous ditching at sea or risk an emergency landing on hostile territory. Time is running out, and the aircraft is barely holding together. Shane Osborne steadies the EP-3 as it limps toward Hainan, battered and vulnerable. The left propeller barely turns, the nose is torn open, and the cabin is losing pressure. Hydraulic systems are leaking, making the controls sluggish and unsteady. With the ocean below and no guarantee of reaching land, Osborne makes the call. Head straight for Lingshui Airfield, the closest strip of concrete, even if it means delivering the aircraft into Chinese hands. Inside, the crew snaps into emergency protocol. Classified documents are fed into shredders. Hard drives are smashed with axes. Magnetic tapes are yanked out and torn apart. Where brute force isn't enough, coffee and water are poured onto electronics to ruin circuits. Every classified scrap must be destroyed before landing. Time is measured in heartbeats, not minutes. As the runway comes into view, Osborne lowers the landing gear by hand, working around failed hydraulics. The touchdown is rough, but the aircraft stays on the tarmac. Almost immediately, armed Chinese soldiers surround the plane, shouting orders in both English and Chinese. The crew is ordered out, hands visible, as the aircraft is seized. In less than 5 minutes, the US loses control of one of its most advanced intelligence platforms, and the fate of the crew shifts from technical crisis to diplomatic standoff. For 11 days, the 24 crew members of the EP-3 lived under constant watch inside a military barracks on Hainan. Each morning began with the same routine. Guards escorted them to separate rooms for questioning. The interrogations were methodical, covering flight details, mission purpose, and the events leading up to the collision. Fatigue set in as the days blurred together. Sleep was limited, meals unfamiliar, and information about the outside world scarce. Despite the pressure, the crew kept their answers careful and consistent, revealing nothing sensitive. Outside the barracks, the diplomatic crisis deepened. The Chinese government demanded a formal apology, linking the crew's fate to national mourning for Wang Wei. In Washington, officials debated every word, searching for language that would satisfy Beijing without admitting legal fault. The breakthrough came on April 11th, when US Ambassador Joseph Pruher delivered a carefully crafted letter to China's foreign minister. The note expressed sorrow for the loss of the pilot and regret for landing without permission, but stopped short of an outright apology. This linguistic balance allowed both sides to claim resolution. That same day, the crew was released and flown to Guam in Operation Valiant Return. Relief swept through families and officials as the human crisis ended, even as the diplomatic rift remained raw. The damaged EP-3 never left Hainan under its own power. After months of negotiation, US technicians arrived in July 2001 to dismantle the aircraft, working under close Chinese supervision. On July 3rd, the remains were loaded onto an Antonov AN-124 cargo plane and flown out piece by piece, marking the first time a US reconnaissance platform was physically seized and returned in this way. The loss forced a hard look at procedures. Naval Air Systems Command issued new guidance, referenced as Navarre 10-112, detailing stricter destruction protocols for sensitive equipment and data in any future emergency. The incident also shaped international airspace doctrine. The People's Liberation Army introduced its own Air Defense Identification Zone procedures, formalizing the interception of foreign aircraft near China's coast. Each of these changes reflected the lessons learned, that the physical loss of a single aircraft could drive lasting reforms in how both sides approached high-stakes encounters over contested waters. The Hainan incident cast a long shadow over how military aircraft interact above contested waters. In 2004, the United States and China agreed on the Military Maritime Consultative Agreement, or MMCA, designed to reduce miscalculation during air and sea encounters. The agreement set out basic expectations: professional conduct, clear communications, and a commitment to avoid dangerous maneuvers. Yet the skies over the South China Sea remain crowded and tense. In 2009, a US Navy surveillance ship reported harassment by Chinese vessels off Hainan. 5 years later, a Chinese fighter flew within meters of a US P-8 Poseidon, performing a barrel roll as a show of force. Each time, officials on both sides referenced the lessons, sometimes the failures, of 2001. Policy analysts warn that routine intercepts can still spiral out of control, especially as technology and territorial claims evolve. The EP-3E involved in the collision now sits on display at the Pima Air and Space Museum, a physical reminder that the risks of miscalculation are never far from the present. Today, US and Chinese military jets still shadow each other over contested seas, sometimes within meters. The risks that triggered the 2001 crisis haven't vanished. In fact, they've multiplied. When routine encounters can ignite global standoffs, every decision at 30,000 feet carries consequences that reach far beyond the horizon.